A cold call from an unknown number with a distorted voice warned me not to go to my son's birthday party and to flee the city. I ignored it, clinging to the hope of reconciliation in the family. But that night, I ended up in intensive care. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The gift bag crinkled in my trembling hands as Melissa's voice cut through the kitchen air like a blade. Orval called again about that auto parts debt. When will your father finally understand it's time to step aside? I froze in the hallway, my heart hammering against my ribs. The cheerful dinosaur pattern on the bag seemed to mock me, as Alton's response made my blood run cold. I'm tired of his lectures about family values. We need his money, not his wisdom. The words hit harder than any physical blow. I'd raised this boy, sacrificed everything for his future, and this was how he spoke about me when he thought I couldn't hear. My legs felt unsteady as I forced myself forward into the kitchen. The modern granite surfaces gleamed under the pendant lights, cold and unwelcoming, despite the warmth I'd expected to find here. I brought a gift for Billy, I managed, setting the bag on the marble countertop. New dinosaur set. Alton spun around, his face flushing red when he saw me. Melissa remained seated at the breakfast bar, her expression calculating rather than embarrassed. No apology crossed her perfectly painted lips. Dad, Alton started, then his jaw tightened. How long have you been standing there? Long enough? The words came out steadier than I felt. Is that really what you think of me? Something dark flickered across Alton's features. Years of resentment seemed to pour out all at once. More money wasted on nonsense. We don't need you anymore, Dad. The gift bag toppled over as I gripped the counter for support. Don't need me? After everything I've done for you? Everything you've done? Alton's voice rose to a shout. You mean everything you've held over our heads? Every dollar comes with a lecture, every favor with conditions. Melissa watched our exchange with the detached interest of someone observing a tennis match. Her silence spoke volumes. This confrontation had been brewing in her mind long before tonight. I began, but Alton cut me off. You never what? Never reminded me how much you spent on my education? Never made me feel like a failure every time a business deal went wrong? The kitchen walls seemed to close in around me. This wasn't my son speaking. This was someone I didn't recognize. Someone poisoned by years of whispered conversations like the one I just overheard. I tried to help you build a life, I said quietly. Both of you. Help? Alton laughed bitterly. You tried to control us. Well, we're done being controlled. I looked at the dinosaur set sprawled across their expensive countertop, its bright colors garish against the cold stone. Billy would never see this gift. Maybe I'd never see Billy again. Without another word, I turned and walked toward the back door. Behind me, I heard Melissa finally speak. Let him go, honey. He'll cool off. The evening air hit my face like a slap. My hands shook as I fumbled with the car keys, my vision blurring as I slumped behind the steering wheel. The house glowed warmly through the windshield, but inside that warmth lived strangers who wore the phases of my family. The engine turned over on the third try. As I backed out of the driveway, I could see them through the kitchen window, already returning to their evening as if nothing had happened. The 35-minute drive home passed in a haze of replayed conversations and growing hurt. Every traffic light gave me another moment to hear Alton's words echo in my head. We don't need you anymore, Dad. My house sat dark and silent on Maple Street, its familiar Victorian silhouette offering little comfort tonight. I'd lived here for 42 years, raised Alton within these walls, shared countless dreams with Carrie in every room. Now, it felt like a museum of better times. I poured 2 fingers of bourbon, the first drink I'd touched in months, and settled into Carrie's old reading chair. The leather had molded to her shape over the years, and I could almost feel her presence surrounding me. Her photograph watched from the mantelpiece, silver hair catching the lamplight. Those wise eyes seemed to hold answers I desperately needed. What would she say about tonight? About the son we'd raised together, turning into someone so cruel? The bourbon burned my throat, but the pain felt appropriate somehow. Everything burned tonight. My phone rang at 9:30. Melissa's name lit up the screen, and despite everything, I answered. Merle. Her voice was crisp, businesslike. We urgently need those $25,000 you borrowed for the renovation. What borrowed money? The words came out sharper than I intended. That was a housewarming gift. No, it was a loan. Her tone never wavered, as if she were reciting established facts. And if you don't return it, forget about Billy. He won't be talking to a grandfather who's a deadbeat. The casual cruelty of it stole my breath. You can't forbid me from seeing my grandson. I can, and I will. Each word was precise, calculated. Think about it carefully, Merle. We have our own family to protect now. The line went dead, leaving me staring at my phone in the sudden silence. $25,000. Money I'd given freely to help them start their marriage in a beautiful home. Now she was rewriting history, turning my generosity into debt. I set the phone down with careful control, though my hands were shaking again. The house seemed to press closer around me, filled with the weight of 40 years of memories and the suffocating realization that everything I'd believed about my family was crumbling. Carrie's voice whispered from memory. Merle, that girl looks at you like an ATM, not like family. I'd dismissed her concerns then, chalked them up to motherly protectiveness. But Carrie had seen something I'd refused to acknowledge. The bourbon glass sat empty in my lap. I reached for my notepad and wrote $25,000 in shaking handwriting. Below it, almost without thinking, I added a question mark. How much more money had they borrowed over the years? How many gifts had become loans in their revised version of our family history? I looked at the stack of financial documents on my desk. 10 years of bank statements, canceled checks, and investment records. Tomorrow, I would need answers. Tonight, I would mourn the son I thought I knew. The notepad lay open on my lap, that terrible number staring back at me in the lamplight. $25,000, transformed from love into leverage with a single phone call. Morning light streamed through my office windows, harsh and unforgiving after a sleepless night. I'd spent the dark hours replaying every conversation, every request for money, every time I'd opened my wallet to help my family. Now, with coffee growing cold at my elbow, I faced the truth I'd been avoiding for years. The oak desk groaned under the weight of 10 years' worth of financial documents. Bank statements, canceled checks, investment records, everything organized by year in neat manila folders. My business training served me well. When seeking truth, start with numbers. The first folder held 2024 records. $25,000 for the renovation, paid in March. $1,500 for Billy's summer camp in June. $3,000 for Alton's car repairs in August. Each check memo line read gift in my careful handwriting. 2023 brought more revelations. $18,000 for Billy's private school tuition. We want the best for him, Dad. $5,000 for Melissa's emergency dental work. Another $8,000 when Alton's real estate deal fell through. My calculator clicked steadily as I worked backward through the years. 2022, $12,000 for their vacation, $7,000 for Melissa's car down payment. 2021, $35,000 for Alton's failed investment venture. It's a sure thing, Dad. The pattern emerged with mathematical precision. Every few months, another crisis, another opportunity, another reason why Grandpa should help out. Always presented as temporary, always promised to be the last time. By 2019, I was pulling out larger amounts. $15,000 for their Disney trip with Billy. $10,000 when Melissa's blog needed professional equipment. $22,000 when Alton's commissions dried up. $180,000 over 10 years, I said aloud to the empty room. My voice sounded hollow, defeated. And they talk about debts. I found Carrie's hospital letters in the bottom drawer, her handwriting shakier toward the end, but her wisdom unchanged. One passage jumped from the page. Merle, watch how Melissa asks for things. She's learned exactly which words make you reach for your checkbook. You were right, sweetheart, I whispered to her photograph. You were always right. The phone call to my bank took 3 minutes. Yes, Mr. Nichols, your current balance is $340,000. Enough to be comfortable, enough to help family when they truly needed it. But apparently, according to Melissa's accounting, I owed them money instead. I pulled out my will and property deeds, spreading them across the cleared desk surface. The house was worth $400,000. My portfolio, another $200,000 after recent market gains. Not wealthy by some standards, but comfortable enough to ensure Billy's future and help Alton build a real career if he wanted it. If he wanted it. The legal pad now held columns of figures, dates, and patterns that painted a clearer picture than any family photo ever could. 180,000 in gifts that were apparently loans. A grandson held hostage for $25,000. A son who believed his father was nothing more than an ATM with legs. Sunlight crept across the desk as hours passed, illuminating the evidence of my foolishness and their calculated manipulation. But something else grew in that light. Not just hurt or anger, but clarity. They thought they knew me, thought I was just a lonely old widower who'd pay any price to feel needed, to feel loved. They'd counted on my generosity, my guilt, my desperate desire to remain connected to the only family I had left. They'd counted wrong. I closed the final folder and looked at my legal pad one last time. The total stared back at me. $180,000. I picked up the phone, dialed my bank, and got confirmation of my current balance. $340,000. Hanging up, I allowed myself a grim smile. Walking to my safe, I pulled out my will and property deeds, spreading them beside the financial records. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows as I began to plan my next moves, each document a piece in a larger puzzle they'd never see coming. The phone rang just as I was stirring my tomato soup, the sound cutting through the evening silence like a blade. 7 days had passed since I'd discovered the truth about my family's financial manipulation. 7 days of eating alone and avoiding their calls. "Dad, it's me." Alton's voice carried a tone I hadn't heard in years, soft, almost vulnerable. I set down my spoon, gripping the phone tighter. "Alton, I wasn't expecting your call. Listen, I want to apologize for that evening." The words came slowly, deliberately. "I was wrong to speak to you that way. We both were." Steam rose from my forgotten soup as I processed his words. After everything, the cruelty, Melissa's threats about Billy, was he really calling to make amends? "Do you really mean that? Melissa understands too that we went too far." His voice strengthened, gaining confidence. "We've been talking all week about how awful we were to you. You don't deserve that kind of treatment, not after everything you've done for us." I found myself sinking into the kitchen chair, my legs suddenly unsteady. This was what I'd been hoping for, praying for during those long, lonely evenings. My son coming back to me. "Son, It's my birthday on the 27th, Alton interrupted. "Will you come? I want us to start over, fresh slate, no more arguments about money or anything else. Just family." The calendar on the kitchen wall showed October 23rd, 4 days away. I reached for my pen, circling the date with shaking fingers. "Of course I'll come, son. I'm always ready to forgive." "Good, really good, Dad. Come around 7:30. Melissa's making a special dinner, and Billy's been asking about his grandpa." Billy. My heart clenched at the mention of my grandson. "How is he?" "Growing like a weed. He misses you terribly. We all do." After we hung up, I sat staring at the circled date. The soup had grown cold, a skin forming on its surface. But I didn't care. My family wanted me back. Alton had called me Dad 3 times during our conversation, something he rarely did anymore. I pulled out my wallet and counted the bills. $300 would buy a nice watch, something he could wear to work, something that would remind him of this reconciliation every time he checked the time. And I'd make Carrie's apple pie, the one she used to bake for his birthdays when he was Billy's age. The kitchen suddenly felt warmer, more alive than it had in weeks. I looked at Carrie's photo on the counter, her gentle smile seeming to approve of my decision to forgive. "He's still our boy," I whispered to her picture. "Deep down, he's still our boy." The evening light faded outside my window as I planned the next 4 days, shopping for the perfect gift, practicing Carrie's pie recipe, pressing my good blue suit. For the first time since that terrible evening, hope flickered in my chest like a candle flame. Maybe family really could heal all wounds. Maybe love really was stronger than money. Maybe my son had finally realized what truly mattered. I reached for the calendar again, drawing a small star next to October 27th. A new beginning was waiting, just 4 days away. The hot shower steam fogged the bathroom mirror as I hummed an old tune Carrie used to sing. 4 days of anticipation had built to this moment. October the 27th, 6:45 p.m. My son's birthday, and our chance to rebuild what we'd nearly lost. The blue suit hung on the bedroom door, pressed to perfection. Carrie always said it made my eyes look younger, more alive. Tonight felt like the right night to honor her memory by wearing it. I shaved carefully, taking my time with the razor. The man in the mirror looked hopeful for the first time in weeks. The expensive watch I'd bought yesterday, a Citizen with a leather band, sat in its velvet-lined box on the dresser, wrapped in silver paper with a blue bow. Cologne, just a splash behind the ears. Carrie's apple pie, wrapped in her favorite dish towel, waited in the kitchen. I'd practiced the recipe twice this week, and today's attempt was perfect. Golden crust, cinnamon, sweet filling that would have made her proud. $6.50. Time to go. I picked up the gift box and my car keys, checking my appearance one final time in the hallway mirror. The grandfather clock in the corner chimed the hour as I reached for the front door handle. The phone rang. I paused, key halfway to the lock. Who would call at this hour? Maybe Alton, checking if I was on my way. I set down the gift and answered on the fourth ring. Merle Nichols? The voice was unfamiliar, slightly distorted, as if the speaker was holding something over the mouthpiece. Yes, that's me. Who is speaking? That doesn't matter. The words came fast, urgent. Stay home. Don't go to the celebration. My grip tightened on the phone. What? Who are you? Why would you? And tomorrow leave the city. This is serious. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my reflection multiplied in its black screen. Unknown caller, no number to call back. My hands trembled slightly as I set the receiver in its cradle. What kind of person makes anonymous threats? Some prank caller targeting elderly people. A wrong number. My heart hammered against my ribs, but I forced myself to think rationally. Nobody knew about tonight except family. The voice was disguised, probably some teenager playing jokes on random phone numbers. Or maybe someone with a grudge against Alton. Real estate agents made enemies sometimes. I picked up the gift box again, testing its weight in my hands. $300 worth of love and reconciliation. Billy was waiting to see his grandfather. Alton had apologized, truly apologized, and asked me to forgive him. Some stranger's mysterious warning wouldn't steal this moment from me. Probably just a prank on an old man, I muttered, opening the front door. The October air was crisp, sharp with the smell of burning leaves. Street lamps created pools of yellow light along Maple Street, and the familiar route to my son's house stretched ahead through the suburban evening. I looked back at my house one more time, solid and welcoming in the porch light. Then I straightened my shoulders, clutched the gift tighter, and stepped into the cool night air. Whatever that call was about, it couldn't be more important than family. The 15-minute drive to Alton's house passed in a blur of autumn streets and streetlights. My hands gripped the steering wheel tighter than usual, the stranger's warning echoing in my mind despite my attempts to dismiss it. Stay home, don't go to the celebration. Who could have called? And how did they know my number, know about tonight's dinner? I'd lived in this town for 40 years. Maybe some neighbor had seen me buying the gift, making the pie. Small towns bred gossip like flowers bred bees. At the red light on Oak Avenue, I almost turned around. The scared part of me whispered that anonymous warnings meant danger, that prudent men listened when strangers told them to stay away. But the loving father in me was stronger. Alton had reached out, had apologized. Billy was waiting. Probably some mistake, I said aloud, watching my breath fog the windshield. Or a prank on the old man. Riverside Drive opened before me, lined with expensive houses and manicured lawns. Alton's mortgage payment alone cost more than most people's monthly salary, but somehow they managed. Somehow they always found money for the things that mattered to them. I pulled into their driveway behind Melissa's white Mercedes. The house glowed warmly, every window lit, the porch light casting everything in welcoming yellow. Jack-o'-lanterns lined the walkway. Billy's handiwork, no doubt, carved with the enthusiasm of 8-year-old hands. My legs felt unsteady as I walked to the front door, the gift box tucked under my arm like a shield. Something felt different tonight, though I couldn't name what. Maybe it was the anonymous call, maybe the way the house seemed too bright, too perfect. The doorbell played its familiar melody. Footsteps approached quickly, too quickly, as if someone had been waiting right inside. "Dad, you came!" Alton threw open the door, his smile broad and enthusiastic. "Come in quickly." His embrace felt awkward, over-eager, like a performance rather than genuine affection. But I wanted to believe it was real, needed to believe it. Of course I came, son. Happy birthday. Merle, how wonderful that you're here. Melissa appeared from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish rag, her smile as bright as the porch lights. She looked different somehow, more animated than usual, almost excited. Her eyes held an intensity I didn't remember seeing before, but her voice carried the warmth I'd been hoping to hear for years. Come in, come in. Billy's been watching for your car all evening. The house smelled of roasting meat and something sweet. Birthday cake, probably. Everything appeared normal, the expensive furniture, the family photos lining the hallways, the soft jazz playing from hidden speakers. But the anonymous voice lingered in my mind like smoke. Stay home, don't go to the celebration. I shook off the unease as Billy thundered down the stairs, his face lighting up when he saw me. Grandpa, you came. Mom said you might be too busy. His hug was genuine, untainted by adult complications. For a moment, my fears melted away. This was why I'd come, for this innocent love, this pure joy at seeing his grandfather. I'm never too busy for you, Billy. As I hung my coat in the hallway closet, I caught Melissa watching me from the kitchen doorway. Her smile remained perfect, but something in her stare made my skin prickle. The dining room table was set for 4, candles flickering, everything arranged with careful precision. Tonight was about family, I reminded myself, adjusting my tie. Whatever that phone call was about, it couldn't be more important than this moment, this chance to heal what had been broken. But as I prepared to join the celebration, something still felt wrong. Billy's arms wrapped around my waist the moment I stepped into the dining room, his genuine excitement washing away the lingering unease from that mysterious phone call. The room sparkled with celebration, crystal glasses catching candlelight, fresh flowers arranged with theatrical precision, the good china reserved for special occasions. Grandpa, tell me about the T-Rex. Billy bounced beside me as I took my seat at the head of the table. Did they really eat people? You know, Billy, a T-Rex had teeth as long as bananas, I said, ruffling his hair, but they lived millions of years before people existed. The normalcy of his questions settled my nerves. This was what family should be. A child's wonder, shared stories, 3 generations around one table. Maybe that anonymous caller had been wrong, or maybe they'd dialed the wrong number entirely. Alton brought out the wrapped gift from the kitchen counter, his smile broad but somehow stretched too tight. Dad, you didn't need to bring anything. Nonsense, it's your birthday. I watched him unwrap the watch carefully, his fingers trembling slightly as he lifted it from the velvet box. $300? Dad, this is too expensive. You're worth every penny, son. His embrace felt awkward, lasting a beat too long, as if he were performing for an audience. But Billy's chatter about dinosaurs and Melissa's frequent trips between kitchen and dining room created a rhythm that felt almost normal. The dinner progressed through predictable courses, roast beef that Melissa had clearly spent hours preparing, vegetables seasoned to perfection, wine that Alton poured with ceremonial precision. We talked about Billy's school, Alton's latest real estate prospects, anything except the angry words that had driven us apart just 12 days ago. And now, Melissa announced, disappearing into the kitchen with dramatic flair, the birthday cake. She returned carrying an elaborate chocolate creation, 3 layers high with ornate frosting roses and 40 glowing candles. The presentation was almost theatrical, her movements deliberate, her smile fixed and bright. Make a wish, honey, she said, setting it before Alton. But her eyes were on me as she cut the slices, her hands moving with practiced precision. The piece she placed before me was noticeably larger than the others, a generous wedge that would have fed 2 people. Merle, you must try my special cake, she insisted, her voice carrying an undertone I couldn't quite identify. It's a family recipe. The first bite was rich, overwhelmingly sweet, but underneath the chocolate, I detected something else, a bitter aftertaste that lingered on my tongue. Thank you, dear, I managed, though the taste is a bit unusual. That's the secret ingredient. Her eyes never left my face as I chewed. Eat more. I worked so hard on it. Politeness demanded I continue. Melissa had spent hours in the kitchen, had gone to considerable effort for this reconciliation dinner. The least I could do was appreciate her hospitality, even if the cake's flavor struck me as somehow off. Billy showed me his latest drawing, dinosaurs in a prehistoric landscape, colored with the intensity only 8-year-old hands could achieve. As I praised his artistic talent, taking another bite of cake to please Melissa, The clock on the dining room wall chimed 9:15. "That's wonderful, Billy," I said, studying the T-Rex he'd drawn with careful detail. "You're quite the artist." But as I reached for my water glass, something twisted in my stomach. Not quite pain, not quite nausea, but something indefinably wrong. I touched my abdomen, frowning. "That's odd," I began to say. "That's odd," I repeated, my hand pressing against my stomach, as an uncomfortable sensation spread through my midsection. Billy looked up from his dinosaur drawing, his 8-year-old face creased with concern. "What's wrong, Grandpa?" "Nothing serious, I'm sure." But even as I spoke, the discomfort intensified, a cramping sensation that made me shift uncomfortably in my chair. "Maybe I just ate too much." Alton leaned forward, his expression showing what appeared to be genuine worry. "Dad, you don't look well." "I feel a bit sick," I admitted, touching my forehead. A thin layer of sweat had formed despite the comfortable temperature of the dining room. Perhaps I should stand up, get some air. But when I tried to rise, dizziness washed over me like a wave. The elegant dining room tilted slightly, the candles on the table blurring into streaks of yellow light. "Whoa, easy there," Alton said, steadying me with his hand. "Maybe you overate, Dad. Why don't you sit down for a bit?" Melissa appeared beside me with a glass of water, then seemed to reconsider. "Actually, maybe lying down would be better. Let's get you to the living room." The 15 steps to the couch felt like miles. My legs trembled with each movement, and the cramping in my stomach had evolved into sharp, persistent pain. Billy followed us, his small face growing more frightened with each passing moment. "No, this is different," I gasped, lowering myself onto the leather couch. "My stomach really hurts." The pain was intensifying rapidly now, as if something were clawing at my insides. Sweat poured down my face despite the evening's coolness, and my vision began to blur around the edges. "Want some water?" Melissa asked, then quickly added, "Actually, no, better to lie down and rest." Something was terribly wrong. This wasn't simple indigestion or overeating. The pain came in waves now, each one stronger than the last, accompanied by a nausea so severe I could barely speak. "Call an ambulance," I whispered, clutching the couch cushions. "Please, something's really wrong." "Oh, you're probably just having a reaction to the rich food," Alton said, but his voice sounded strained, uncertain. "Let's see if it passes." The room spun violently. Through my blurred vision, I could see Billy standing in the doorway, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Grandpa, what's wrong with you?" he cried, running to my side. "I don't know, Billy," I managed, my voice barely audible. The pain was excruciating now, radiating from my stomach through my entire torso. "I don't know what's happening." Melissa knelt beside the couch, her face a mask of concern that somehow felt performed. "Maybe you should try to sleep it off. Sometimes these things just need time." "No," I gasped, struggling to focus on her face. "This isn't normal. Call 911, please." But even as I begged for help, my consciousness began to slip away. The last thing I remembered was Billy's small hand holding mine, his voice calling my name through what felt like thick fog. When I couldn't respond anymore, when my body went limp on their expensive couch, I heard Alton finally say the words I'd been desperate to hear. "Melissa, call an ambulance." The sirens seemed to come from very far away. The steady beeping of machines drew me back to consciousness, like a rope pulling me up from deep water. My mouth felt dry as cotton, and my body ached in ways I'd never experienced before. Harsh fluorescent lights made me squint as I tried to focus on my surroundings. White walls, medical equipment, the antiseptic smell that belonged only to hospitals. An IV line ran from my left arm to a bag of clear fluid hanging beside the bed. Wires connected me to monitors that beeped with reassuring regularity. "Mr. Nichols?" A nurse appeared beside my bed, her face kind but professionally concerned. "You're awake. Let me get the doctor." Dr. Martinez arrived within minutes, a middle-aged man with gentle eyes and serious expression. He pulled up a chair beside my bed, clipboard in hand. "Mr. Nichols, you survived serious poisoning," he said without preamble. "We've been monitoring you for the past day and a half." "Poisoning?" The word felt foreign in my mouth. "How is that possible?" "That's what we need to determine. The toxin severely damaged your digestive system. We found evidence of a plant-based alkaloid in your blood. Very dangerous stuff." He leaned forward, his voice dropping slightly. Who had access to your food that evening? Memory came flooding back in fragments. The birthday dinner, Melissa's insistence on the cake, that bitter aftertaste I'd dismissed out of politeness. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The cake, I whispered, my voice hoarse. Melissa insisted so much on that cake, made me eat the whole piece. Dr. Martinez made notes on his clipboard. We'll need to report this to the authorities. Intentional poisoning is a serious crime. The nurse checked my IV, adjusting the flow with practiced efficiency. Your son calls every day, she mentioned casually. Very concerned about you, sweet young man. Of course he's concerned, I said bitterly, the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. About the inheritance. They thought I was going to die. The mysterious phone warning, the overly cheerful reunion, Melissa's theatrical cake presentation. It had all been a performance leading to attempted murder. My own son had sat at that table, watching his wife poison his father. Over the next 2 days, as my strength slowly returned, the full scope of their betrayal became clear. The apologetic phone call, the birthday invitation, even Billy's genuine excitement. All of it had been orchestrated to get me to that table, to that cake, to what should have been my final meal. The anonymous caller had been right. Someone had tried to save my life, and I'd almost ignored their warning out of stubborn hope for family reconciliation. As I lay in that hospital bed, staring at the acoustic tiles on the ceiling, something hardened inside me like steel cooling after fire. For 65 years, I'd been a decent man, a loving father, a generous provider. I'd raised my son with values, taught him right from wrong, given him everything I could. And in return, he'd tried to murder me for my money. The heart monitor beside my bed showed my pulse quickening as I began to formulate what came next. They wanted me dead for my inheritance. They thought a frail old man would be easy prey. They want me dead for my money, I whispered to the empty room, my eyes narrowing with determination I hadn't felt in decades. They had made one critical mistake. I was still breathing. 2 weeks of careful performance had passed since my discharge from St. Francis Hospital. Each day brought another visit from my concerned son and daughter-in-law. Each conversation, another opportunity to gather evidence of their deception. Dad, you seem confused again today, Alton said, perching on the edge of my favorite reading chair like a vulture evaluating wounded prey. Maybe we should talk to your doctor about memory issues. I let my hand tremble as I reached for my coffee cup, the small digital recorder in my shirt pocket capturing every calculated word. Where is my Carrie? Why isn't she here? Melissa appeared in the doorway, her expression perfectly crafted compassion. Merle, sweetheart, we've talked about this. Carrie died 5 years ago, remember? Did she? I blinked slowly, letting confusion cloud my features. But I made her breakfast this morning. The lies came easily now. Each performance strengthened my case. Each recorded conversation added another nail to their legal coffin. My business training served me well. Patience, documentation, strategic thinking. They thought they were manipulating a declining old man, but I was building an airtight case for attempted murder. Dr. Harrison called, Alton continued, his voice taking on that patronizing tone I'd learned to hate. He's concerned about your living alone. Maybe it's time to consider assistance. What kind of assistance? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The conservatorship papers were probably already drafted, waiting for the right moment to strip away my independence and access my accounts. Just someone to help with finances, medications, day-to-day decisions, Melissa said sweetly. Your lawyer thinks it would be for the best. My lawyer, the man who'd handled my affairs for 20 years, now convinced by their lies that I was incompetent. I made a note to record our next conversation as well. I suppose that makes sense, I said slowly, as if the idea were penetrating fog. I do get confused sometimes. Over the next week, their manipulation escalated. Melissa had been busy in the neighborhood, visiting concerned friends with tales of my declining condition. Poor Merle sometimes doesn't even recognize me, she told Mrs. Peterson from next door, her voice carrying the perfect note of martyred devotion. We're so worried about him living alone. I heard this through my kitchen window as I photographed financial documents with my phone's camera, building a comprehensive record of their decade-long theft. $180,000, carefully documented, each transaction a testament to their calculated greed. The hardest part was maintaining the act when Billy visited. His genuine love and concern made my heart ache, knowing his parents' arrest would shatter his world. But children were resilient, and he deserved a future free from their toxic influence. "Grandpa, are you really sick?" he asked one afternoon, his 8-year-old eyes bright with worry. "Just tired, Billy," I told him honestly. Sometimes grown-ups get very tired. As November progressed, their confidence grew. Alton spoke more freely about managing Dad's affairs, while Melissa discussed selling my house to pay for proper care. Each conversation was recorded, each threat documented, each lie preserved for posterity. The text message arrived on a Tuesday evening. "Coffee tomorrow, we need to talk. O." I stared at the initial O and felt the final piece of the puzzle click into place. Orval Knight, my old business partner, the man who'd tried to warn me with that mysterious phone call. Tomorrow, I would finally meet my anonymous ally. Main Street Cafe sat on the corner where Oakwood's small downtown met the residential neighborhoods, a place where business deals had been made and friendships forged for 40 years. I entered slowly, maintaining my frail act even here, and spotted Orval Knight at a corner table. He looked older than I remembered, silver hair thinning, shoulders slightly stooped, but his eyes were sharp as ever, watching the door with the intensity I remembered from our business days. "Merle," he said quietly as I approached. "Thank you for coming." "Orval." I settled into the chair across from him, noting how he'd chosen a table away from other patrons. "It was you who called that evening." His face confirmed what I'd already guessed. "I need to tell you something I should have said weeks ago." The waitress brought coffee I hadn't ordered, and Orval waited until she was out of earshot before continuing. "I was at their house October 25th, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. "Came to discuss that auto parts debt Melissa mentioned. You remember, from when we dissolved the partnership?" I nodded, letting him continue. "While I was waiting, Melissa was on the phone with someone, talking about Sunday's plan." His hands tightened around his coffee mug. She said, "The old man will be gone soon, we'll help him along a bit." The words hit me like physical blows, even though I'd already suspected the truth. Hearing it confirmed, knowing they'd planned my death so casually, still stole my breath. "What exactly was the plan?" I asked, though my hospital stay had already provided that answer. "Something about special cake ingredients." She laughed, Merle, actually laughed about poisoning you. Orval's voice carried decades of guilt. I couldn't reveal myself. They would have canceled the plan and tried again later. But I couldn't let them murder you either. And you decided to warn me. Used a payphone on Elm Street, held a handkerchief over the mouthpiece to disguise my voice. I hoped you'd listen, stay home, maybe leave town for a while. His shoulders sagged. When I heard about your hospitalization, I thought I'd failed. I pulled out my phone and showed him the recording app I'd been using. I've been gathering evidence, conversations, financial records, medical documentation, everything we need to prove their guilt. Orval's expression shifted from guilt to something approaching relief. "You're not the declining old man they think you are." "Business training," I said with a dry smile. "Document everything, trust nothing, plan for every contingency." He reached into his jacket and withdrew a manila folder. Photos of their kitchen the day I overheard the conversation. Melissa had plant materials drying on the counter. Looked like pokeweed roots and leaves, highly toxic if concentrated properly. Together, we spread our evidence across the small table like generals planning a campaign. My recordings of their competency discussions, financial manipulation documentation, his witness testimony and photographs, my medical records proving intentional poisoning. "This is enough for attempted murder charges," Orval said, his business experience matching mine in evaluating the case strength. "Who do we contact?" "Detective Rodriguez at the Oakwood Police. Lives 2 houses down from me. Good man. Honest, thorough." Orval pulled out a business card. I already spoke to him informally. He's expecting our call. The cafe's afternoon light slanted through windows as we finalized our strategy. Contact police tomorrow morning, present evidence as concerned citizen and victim. Push for arrests before the conservatorship hearing scheduled for November 25th. "What about Billy?" I asked, the question that had haunted my planning. "We arrange for him to be at school when they make the arrests. He'll need counseling, stability, protection from the media circus that'll follow. I looked across the table at my old friend, feeling gratitude I couldn't adequately express. "Why did you help me, Orval? We haven't spoken in years." His answer was simple: because it was the right thing to do. We shook hands over our alliance, two old businessmen who'd learned that some partnerships transcended profit margins. Detective Rodriguez's business card lay between us like a promise. "He's expecting our call tomorrow morning," Orval said. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself a genuine smile. Time for justice. The conference table at Oakwood Police Station was covered with evidence that told the story of calculated betrayal: audio recordings, financial documents, medical records, witness statements, and photographs that painted a clear picture of attempted murder. Detective Rodriguez, a serious man in his 40s with intelligent eyes and careful questions, had spent 3 hours reviewing our case. Now he leaned back in his chair, expression grim but determined. "We have enough evidence to charge them with attempted murder in the first degree," he said, tapping the folder containing my hospital records. "The financial manipulation adds elder abuse and fraud charges. Mr. Knight's witness testimony about the conspiracy seals it." The arrests happened on a cold December morning, while Billy was safely at school. I watched from Detective Rodriguez's unmarked car as officers approached my son's front door, knowing this moment would change everything forever. Alton answered the door in his bathrobe, coffee mug in hand, his face transforming from confusion to shock to desperate denial as the handcuffs clicked shut. "Dad, this is a misunderstanding," he called out as they led him to the patrol car. "The only misunderstanding," I said, stepping out of the detective's car, "was that I trusted you." Melissa's arrest was quieter, more calculated. She tried to bargain even as they read her rights, offering to testify against Alton in exchange for reduced charges. The officers ignored her negotiations. The trial began February 1st and lasted 2 weeks. I testified about the financial manipulation, the fake concerns about my competency, the systematic theft of $180,000 over 10 years. The prosecution played recordings of their conversations about managing my affairs while I was supposedly declining. Medical experts explained how pokeweed alkaloids worked, how Melissa's special cake ingredients had nearly shut down my kidneys and liver. Orval's testimony about overhearing the murder plan provided the crucial intent evidence. Their defense crumbled under the weight of documentation. My business training had served me well. Every conversation recorded, every manipulation preserved, every lie exposed under courtroom lights. The jury deliberated 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Judge Morrison's sentence was swift and severe: 12 years each for attempted murder, consecutive sentences for the financial crimes. Billy would be 18 when they were eligible for parole. In the months that followed, I legally adopted my grandson and changed my will. The house where they'd tried to poison me was sold, its proceeds going to victim restitution funds. My fortune would fund Billy's education and support charities that protected elderly people from family predators. Billy struggled at first, understanding why his parents had suddenly disappeared, but children adapt faster than adults. With counseling and patience, he began to heal. Orval became an honorary grandfather, helping with homework and teaching Billy the same values his parents had abandoned. Spring arrived early that year. Billy and I were in the back garden, planting new roses where Carrie's old ones had died over the winter. His small hands worked the soil carefully, following my instructions about root placement and spacing. "Grandpa," he asked, looking up from his work, "why did they do those bad things?" I considered my answer carefully, remembering Carrie's wisdom about protecting innocence while teaching truth. "Sometimes people forget what really matters, Billy. They think money is more important than love, more important than family." I helped him position a young rosebush in the rich earth. "But real family protects each other, like your great-grandmother always protected our family values." The spring sun warmed our faces as we worked together, building something beautiful from soil where old beauty had once flourished. In this garden, with this child's laughter mixing with birdsong, justice felt less like revenge and more like renewal. New roses would bloom here soon, tended by hands that understood the difference between family and blood, between inheritance and legacy. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.